What's up everyone? Today we are painting Countess Ordelia from Simon's Zombicide Green Horde. Now she comes in the Horde box and she's the first Kickstarter exclusive hero that I have painted so far. She's modeled after Princess Leia, so I couldn't wait to get her painted and put her on the table so that she could command all of the armies to slay as many orcs as possible. But let's get down to the table and I'll show you how I painted her. Alright, so we started with an all black prime and a zenithal spray from the top down of white primer. I'm starting with Nocturna's base flesh. This is from Vallejo. It's a darker skin tone, and this is what I wanted to start as the base and then just highlight up from there. So this character really has a pretty pale skin tone, but starting with a darker color like this and working up allows you to control how bright you get. I think trying to start with a middle tone and then darken and highlight might make it a little more difficult to get to the brightness that you want. Next up, I'm doing natural flesh, which is sort of the mid-tone. If you were going to start with a mid-tone, this is what you would want. This is a pretty much a middle to light skin tone. Not super light. There's fairy flesh or flat flesh that is a very light skin tone from Vallejo. This is still more in the tan line, like you've been outside once in a while. The flat flesh looks like you live in a cave, so you only want to use that one when you're doing things like elves or monsters, things like that. Ghouls, I guess. You really don't want to use it on somebody who looks healthy. Alright, now I have some reddish flesh. Now I tried, because this is such a cool and important character, I really tried to make the face look good, and I've learned I have a long way to go on faces. I know the techniques, but it's going to just take some practice. So what I've done here is I've taken this reddish flesh, I mixed it into the base flesh that I was using before, or the skin tone that I was using before, and I'm painting the lips and the cheekbones to add a little bit of sort of blush in there. This is the Nocturna shadow. It's the shadow color that comes into the set. You do not want to use this straight. You want to mix this on your palette or in your pots or whatever you're using to mix it with the flesh and darken that flesh down. I'm now using ivory, and this is going to be for the eyes. Another thing that I learned, if you don't want the eyes to look like you're painting an insane person, do the eyes first. So you should do the darkest tone in the eyes. You can use black, you can use a real dark gray, whatever you want. Mix it with the skin tone you're going to use. Then come in and paint the eyes, then paint the pupil. Because after that, you can use the skin tone to shape the eye and make it look like a normal eye. Now I only highlighted one layer before I went and did the eyes, so it wasn't too bad. I was still able to go back and paint it, but I did need to highlight a couple more times. Now I'm using the highlight skin, and the highlight skin I am painting just across the nose and the eyebrow ridge and above the cheeks and on the chin, and I'm trying to shape the cheeks and cut down that pink flesh that I put on there. Well, the reddish flesh that I put on there, but it was kind of pink because I mixed it in with the other skin tone. I don't want it to be so super bright. I want it to look like her cheeks are flush, so I'm doing that. And then I'm also painting across the very tip top of the hand, but also on the knuckle as well. Across her hands. Vallejo model color black is what I'm doing for the pupil. Again, like I said, you learn so much every time. I've learned start with the eyes when you're doing a character that is human, or I guess even a monster that has human looking eyes. Vallejo model colors whole red This is a reddish brown color, and I'm starting with a base coat on her hair of this color. Her hair is much more of like a sandy brown color. It is much lighter, but I didn't want to use a wash on such a small area. So I'm now mixing a little bit of orange into that reddish brown, and then eventually I'll bring in some khaki, and these are all three colors that I'm using. So I'm showing you there on the palette the mixture of those colors, and I just go ahead and dry brush it across the top. Now, one thing that I didn't record that I forgot to show is that I did go back with the whole red, the dark brown color, and line along the wrap that is in her hair, because I wanted to darken the, like, right around that wrap, because with the straight dry brush it sort of covered it up. I'm using Vallejo Game Colors something purple, Warlock purple I think it's called. It's a very dark purple, Warlord purple. And I am painting her entire dress in this. Now, this does not match the character art perfectly, but it's okay. I like the tone that it came out with, and it just shows that even if you don't have the right colors, or if you don't want to spend a ton of time trying to get the color exact, you can still come out with a really awesome looking model that has the right sort of tones, even though it's not the exact colors. And also, sorry that the background kept changing. I completely redid my paint setup, and what you're looking at right now, this shot here, is what it's going to look like going forward for all of my models. I finally found an incredibly comfortable spot to paint. My desk is set up exactly how I want it. I got a bunch of new shelves, and it's making it much easier to paint. So now I have a much better shot because of that as well, because now I'm comfortable and I'm not trying to hold the model out in front of me. I took what you saw before. I took the Warlord purple and I mixed it with plain Vallejo model color purple and started painting. She has a center section that starts right at the center of her chest and then is the middle of her dress. So that I went and did all the raised portions and the flat portions, leaving only the pure game color purple in the recesses. Also, on the front of each of her arms, I'm doing the same thing. I'm adding the mixture of the two. Then I went back and added a little bit more of the purple in there. And then each time I'm adding a little bit more ivory into this mixture to start to lighten it up. And as you can start to see now, you can actually see that the color is starting to change. We're starting to get a more light purple look instead of that really dark purple. In other words, more of a red purple in that center section and a blue purple on the outside section. Now on the rest of the dress, the part that is staying that dark purple, all I'm adding is some ivory to start doing the highlights on that as well, because we do want to highlight it. We do want it to be lightened up. We don't want it to stay that really dark color and just only be one tone. If we're going to detail the rest of the model, we need to detail that as well. But if you add any other colors to it, it's going to change the color, and I didn't want to do that because it's the base color of the center section. So right there is her light whip. It's kind of a play on the lightsaber from Star Wars, and because of that, we are needing to brighten the area right around it. Now, I didn't feel very comfortable doing OSL. I don't know how to do it. I haven't practiced it, and I'd rather not practice it on a model that I actually cared how it turned out. So with this one, I'm not really doing true OSL at all. I'm just brightening the sections closest to this whip, just so that thematically it sort of works. So right around the whip there, you see the lightest tone of purple that I'm using right there. I've used that same tone on other places on the dress, but it's, it wouldn't normally be there on her hip. That would be actually, a little bit of a darker tone as it is below the point of light, but because it's getting more light, there we go. Here's Vallejo Model Color German Gray. This is a black-gray mixture. It's very dark, but it works great for when you're doing black leather. And her shoes is what I'm starting with. So I paint in her shoes, then I paint in the handle to the whip, then I paint in the 3, I believe it is, belts that go around her waist, front and back, and I also paint in her crossbow. So there's actually a lot that gets painted in this German Gray. She is actually only, other than skin tone, really 2 colors. She's purple and black for the most part. But doing her skin and hair, so you really come up to about 4 colors with skin tone and then brown for the hair. Now I started adding in a little bit of ivory to start lightening up this German Gray, and that's what I used to highlight all of the leather. And I did this in about 5 steps. I found that bringing it up really slowly and just continuously pushing that brightness gave me an effect on this that I really liked. So even though it may not look exactly like black leather or pleather or whatever you want to call it, it actually looked really good. And while I really don't like the face I ended up painting on this model, I really like the leather parts. I thought that I nailed those, and you'll see when I'm done, they get pushed what I think was to the perfect point. I didn't go too far, and that's because I took it slow. So I really did about 5 additions of just like a tip of my brush full of ivory. Now I'm taking pure ivory and painting in the feathers of the bolts that are in the quiver. Now this part here, they look white in the picture, but they kind of look weird white on the model. I probably would do a little different, maybe brown or maybe even colored like red, and add some neat colors to the model. What I'm doing here is taking whole red again and painting in the wooden portion on the crossbow. So the crossbow is mostly metal, but then it has a wooden handle. So what I first did was took pure whole red, and then I did a couple of layers of painting just from one corner. You'll see in the character artwork that in one corner it's more orange, and so I added some orange to the whole red. Didn't do any orange by itself, but orange and whole red mixture, and painted it from that corner and went up maybe about 2 or 3 layers of that. And here's Vallejo Model Color Gold. She has a lot of gold on her. Pretty much all the accents are gold. And this takes 2 to 3 coats of the pure gold. It's just very difficult to get gold to cover well. It does look like it covers well under the bright lights. I pretty much say that every time I use gold. Under the bright lights that I'm painting under, it looks like it's covered, but if you look at it in person, you see straight through it. So you want to do 2 to 3 coats of that. She has a little chain that runs around the front and the back. You have to have your paint thinned down as well to just be able to do that chain. Do that on the front and the back. She has a little chain that goes around her neck. You want to paint that, and then she has a little triangle that is on her belt, so you want to paint that as well. Now I'm doing the light whip, and the light whip has sort of a blue glow, and I would really like that if you know how to do this, or if you've learned a good way to do this, or even a way for me to try, let me know. I thought this would be a good way to do it, and it didn't really come out the way I wanted to. What I did was I used a grayish blue color, Azure from Vallejo Model Color, and painted in the whole light whip. Then I went back with ivory and painted over that with sort of a very targeted dry brush, so the paint isn't quite wet, but it's also not as dry as a normal dry brush, and just went over all of that area. Then I'm going to go back with pure white from Vallejo Model Color and kind of tap it along the edge just to get some really bright white points to it. And it sort of looks good. It definitely looks good from far away. It looks good from the tabletop. But up close, it doesn't really capture what I was trying to make it do. and I really don't know what else I could have done. So if you have any ideas for that, let me know, because if I find another model that has that option, then awesome. So I did the basing the exact same as I've done for all the other models in Zombicide Green Horde, so you can go back and watch any of those to see how I do basing. But I think she looks awesome, except for the weird face that I've done on her. But you can see her colors are a little different, but overall pretty similar, and I thought she turned out pretty good. But if you like this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe, comment below with any advice, or let me know what model you would like to see next, and may the Force be ever in your favor.